The winter rain had just faded when the funeral began, wrapping the cemetery in cold gray mist. Mourners stood in silence as the casket of billionaire heiress Aubrey Hale was lowered. Then a soaked street cleaner stepped forward, voice shaking, eyes locked on the coffin. She's not dead. If you believe in compassion, hope, and second chances, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more stories. Let's begin. A cold winter mist clung to the cemetery, softening the outlines of black umbrellas and polished shoes. Wealth and silence stood side by side as mourners gathered to bury Aubrey Hale, the only daughter of billionaire industrialist Richard Hale. She had been found lifeless in her bed just days earlier, declared dead before dawn. The loss hollowed her father, leaving him rigid beside the grave, staring at the casket as if will alone could bring her back. The priest lifted his hand for the final blessing. She's not dead. The words shattered the stillness. A man in a soaked neon green street cleaner's uniform stepped forward from the edge of the crowd. Mud stained his boots, rain dripped from his sleeves, and his hands shook as if the ground itself were unsteady beneath him. Logan Price didn't belong among tailored coats and quiet grief. Every eye turned on him, some startled, others annoyed. He pointed at the casket with unwavering certainty. She's alive. Gasps rippled through the mourners. Richard Hale spun toward him, fury and disbelief colliding in his eyes. Security shifted closer. Yet Logan didn't step back. He stood rooted, heart pounding, driven by something stronger than fear. The certainty that burying her would be a terrible mistake. Logan's voice trembled as he spoke, but he forced the words out. Aubrey Hale, he said, was the only person who had ever looked at him like he mattered. Not as background, not as a nuisance, as a human being. Weeks earlier, he'd found her slumped on a park bench late at night, pale and barely breathing. While others passed by, Logan stayed. He held her hand until paramedics arrived. He remembered how shallow her pulse was, how one medic mentioned a rare metabolic coma, a condition so deep it could mimic death itself. But somewhere between hospital alarms and family panic, that detail vanished. Logan swallowed hard and told them something else no report had captured. Her fingers moved, he said quietly. Just a little, like she was holding on. The crowd shifted uneasily. Some scoffed. Others avoided his eyes. Richard Hale snapped that doctors had confirmed her death, that this was cruel, that Logan was embarrassing himself. Security stepped closer. Logan shook his head, voice breaking but firm. Please, he said, just check again. If I'm wrong, I'll leave. But if I'm right, he couldn't finish the sentence. Silence pressed down, heavy with doubt and possibility. The priest hesitated, caught between protocol and conscience. Finally, he raised a hand, not to bless the grave, but to stop everything. Slowly, reluctantly, Richard Hale nodded. The casket was reopened. Aubrey lay perfectly still, her face peaceful, untouched by struggle. Her mother covered her mouth, already bracing for renewed heartbreak. Logan stepped forward, barely breathing. A small mirror was placed beneath Aubrey's nose. Seconds passed. Nothing. The air felt frozen. Logan's chest tightened. Doubt clawed at him. Then, so faint it could have been imagined, a thin patch of fog bloomed on the glass. Chaos erupted. Doctors rushed forward, hands shaking as they checked again. A pulse, almost lost, nearly undetectable, was there. Shouts rang out. Someone cried. Sirens pierced the mist as Aubrey was rushed from the cemetery, the funeral dissolving into stunned disbelief. Logan stood motionless, rain mixing with tears he hadn't realized were falling. He didn't cheer. He didn't speak. He only watched the ambulance disappear, hope flooding him so hard his legs nearly gave out. Hours later, Logan sat alone on a hospital bench, drenched and shaking, staring at the floor like it might disappear beneath him. The adrenaline had faded, leaving exhaustion and fear in its wake. Footsteps approached. Richard Hale stopped in front of him. For the first time that day, the billionaire did not look powerful. He looked broken and grateful. He lowered himself onto the bench beside Logan, not above him. "You saved my daughter," he said quietly. His voice cracked. Logan shook his head, unable to speak. Days passed before Aubrey finally opened her eyes. When she learned how close she had come to being buried alive, and that one man had stood alone to stop it, she cried openly. She asked to see Logan. When he entered the room, She took his hands and held them tightly. "You saw me," she whispered, when no one else did. The story spread across the city, but not as a scandal. As a reminder that truth sometimes comes from the most overlooked voices. Aubrey recovered slowly, but fully. Her survival became a symbol of compassion, courage, and listening when it matters most. Richard Hale offered Logan money, comfort, a new life free from hardship. Logan refused extravagance. Instead, he accepted something meaningful. He took charge of the community programs Aubrey had always dreamed of building: feeding the homeless, job training, outreach for people the city walked past every day. People like him. The once invisible street cleaner became the steady heart of a movement that changed countless lives, not through wealth, but through dignity. And the city learned something it would not forget. Heroes don't always wear suits or stand behind podiums. Sometimes they wear stained jackets, torn gloves, and carry the quiet bravery to speak the truth when the world refuses to listen. Because one man did exactly that, Aubrey lived, and many others found hope again. Thanks for being here. Like and subscribe to keep more unforgettable stories coming.